Introduce our didactic speaker, Miss Amy Yacobacci. She is a program specialist with the multi-tiered system of supports for the Georgia Department of Education. And I'll let her give more information on her background because she's got so much background and expertise. I learned so much from her, and I'm excited for y'all to have the opportunity to hear from her as well.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with you today and joining my previous colleagues, Crystal and Stephen, and just so excited to be able to talk and share about some of my learning experiences. Prior to joining the Georgia Department of Education team, I was a district coordinator for PBIS in the Glenn County school system down in Brunswick, Georgia. And I did that for over 10 years. And so I learned a lot of watching and observing different leadership styles from different principals, assistant principals, teacher leaders, and implementing this work. And so we've been able to gather a lot of ideas and thoughts to help you learn vicariously from us, to not avoid some of the same mistakes that we made and some of the pitfalls. So just going to quickly share some of those with you today. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those as we go throughout. So really what we want you to focus on and take away from this is that your matrix and everything that you display in your school to advertise this and have visibility is that it's more than just a decoration. We're not about just putting posters on the wall. It is way more than that. So our objectives today, I think we have 3 of those. Learning how to create it with meaning and school and community engagement. What are the appropriate uses for it? Using it as a teaching tool and finding creative ways to display it throughout the building and other locations. The biggest thing that you really want to focus on when you're engaging in this work is that it is about teaching the behavior skills that you want students to engage in. It's not about an acknowledgement system per se, although that is part of it, but you want to be very, very careful. Now, today we are talking about the teaching matrix, but I want to also throw out there that if you don't focus on the teaching and the problem solving, then the perception can become that this is just all about an acknowledgement system. And, you know, we had board members who were saying, oh, that's just Skittles and rainbows. And no, it's really not. So you really want to focus on stressing to everyone that these norms and behavior skills have to be taught, not just at the beginning of the school year. That's going to be very, very important. You'll have that lesson plan scheduled and you'll have that focused time to teach those initial lessons. But this teaching has to be included and inclusive throughout the school year. Teachers will use it as a teaching tool to provide pre-corrections before they take their class from the classroom into the hallway. Okay, remember kids, what does respect look like in the hallway? Remember, we're going to walk in a straight line on that blue line on the right-hand side. They're going to use it for redirection. So when a student has not exhibited the behavior skill exactly the way that we want them to do that, then they're going to use that as a redirection. Remember, this is what this looks like when you're doing small group. This is what it looks like when we're in the cafeteria or the playground or whatever the location might be. It is also a visual cue for students, but a lot of this work is more about changing adult behavior than it is changing kid behavior. And so one of the changes in adult behavior is using this as a tool in order to teach students what we want them to do. Should also be used by administrators. I was really glad to see how many administrators are on the call today, because if this work is not important to you guys and if it's not a focus for you, then it's not going to be a focus for anybody. But administrators should be using the norms and behavior skills whenever they are responding to office discipline referrals and reinforcing these lessons with students who may not have been exhibiting the appropriate behavior skill. Then how can they go back and do that, and giving them an opportunity maybe to role play or to model or make that, or even just making that connection back to what the expected behavior is, helps teach those skills to the kids. Consider ways that you might incorporate these particularly your norms into your curriculum, particularly in literature and in social studies content when you're talking about any kind of historical figures. Do they either exhibit the norms that we want to see, or maybe they did not, and how things might have been different if they had exhibited those norms? You always want to have a plan for reteaching after you've had extended breaks from school. So when you come back from winter break, or after, spring break, or if you have a fall break, anytime, or in our case, and I'm guessing you guys also had an extended break for Hurricane Helene whenever it came through. So always having those opportunities to re-engage with kids and just those reminders. And our adults are no different. We need reminders too, and we need those prompts to, oh yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what the plan is. So keeping that as a focus in the forefront. The purpose of this is so that you have consistency in those common areas throughout the building. Now, certainly within the classroom, teachers need autonomy to develop what their processes and procedures will look like, and they should be tied to school-based or the school-wide norms and behavior skills that are being taught. But when you have a large group of people coexisting in a school, it's very, very helpful, and it provides so much consistency if everybody is speaking the same language. That will help kids as they move throughout the building. It's going to help whatever you call your CTAE or connections, related arts, whatever those specials classes might be. That helps provide that consistency even in those classrooms, and as kids are in the cafeteria, in the hallways, in the bathrooms, wherever that might be. You want to make sure that you are engaging everyone in this work. Everyone can take a role in teaching a lesson. You might utilize maybe PE coaches to teach bus lessons. Maybe you actually bring a bus on campus to take kids out to the school bus and teach those lessons. There may be some kids who never even ride a bus to school, but yet at some point they're going to be on a bus maybe to go on a field trip if they have the opportunity to do that throughout the school year. You want to think about who your staff members are, and maybe some of them have some hidden strengths or talents. Maybe some of them are really good musicians and could write a school song. Certainly tap into your art teacher skills and the music teacher. Maybe they're others that have artistic talent and they're able to paint murals on the wall, or whatever you might be able to do in this teaching these lesson plans, and making it fun and engaging, that it's not just one more thing, but be really creative with it and pull everybody in, not just that small team that you might have working on this, but then how can you pull in other people? Thinking about your family and caregivers, how can you include them? How are you going to train them? One of the things that we used to do was to host a parent university, usually on a Saturday, sometimes on a weeknight, and help them learn about the norms and behavior skills that you're teaching their students. And perhaps one of the activities you might do is coach them and help them in creating a home matrix. So whatever those school-wide norms are, what would that look like at home, in the living room, or when they're outside playing, or in their bedroom, or whatever that might look like? That's a way to make that home and school connection, and even have parents using the same consistent language for students. Also thinking about your community partners. How are you going to engage with them? I can think of one situation with one of our middle schools. Their school-wide acronym for their school-wide expectations or their norms was ROLL, which made a connection to roller skating, And the local skating rink got wind of what they were doing and reached out to the school and said, hey, we want to be a part of this. We like what you're doing. We like the positive message and the way that you're teaching kids. And here are some, skating passes and things that they were able to do. And then there were some other restaurants that kind of got on board with it as well. So make sure that you are reaching out to those community partners that you might have and things that kids might be connected to. So then thinking about visibility, how are you going to make this work visible? Not just to your staff and your students, but to visitors who come into your school. How are they going to feel welcome? How are they going to know what your school is all about and what your expectations are for your students and your teachers? So think about posting your school-wide norms, which are just, your be safe, be responsible, be ready, whatever that might be for your school. Post those everywhere, in all the common areas of the school, on your website, on newsletters and social media, in your email signature. If you have any, a lot of schools are using like the computer monitors to display different announcements that are maybe in the cafeteria or maybe in the front office where, visitors might sit and wait and they can see things scrolling through. You could put it in your student handbooks if you have those, if kids are given printed copies of handbooks. So just be very creative and think about the message that you're trying to convey to everyone. Then also thinking about as you're posting these things, and it takes a lot of time and effort and sometimes monetary resources to make these posters and things. So think about the durability and whether or not it's going to actually stick to the wall. We make our school buildings, they're constructed out of these concrete walls, and they can be the worst at trying to, glue or tape or drill or get things to stick into the wall. So I eventually had some schools who would buy the really large poster frames, if you will, and at Staples or Home Goods or Hobby Lobby, any of those kinds of stores that have those, sell those big poster frames, and they would put them in those, and they look really, really nice, and it helped them be more durable and last more than, a week or two on the wall. If you're not able to put them in a frame or a poster, definitely consider having them laminated. Because you really want to avoid having to spend so much time either rehanging them, constantly putting them up on the wall, or even worse, having to remake them. Whatever visible resources that you create, you want to make sure that they are accessible for everybody. Think about displaying them at eye level for your really young kids. If it's way up high on the wall, even if you did use pictures or images for your non-readers, which is something that you should really, really think about, consider doing. If it's so high up on the wall and they can't even really see it, then they can't really access it. So think about where you're going to place it. And I know also that with our littles, we also want to be careful about will they have to touch everything when they're walking down the hall? So keep that in mind and balancing that as well. But we do want them to be able to see it in order to engage with it. And also think about, your students with disabilities. If you have a blind or visually impaired student, how are they going to access? How are they going to know what all these resources are and be able to interact with them? Also think about whenever you're posting the norms and the behavior skills for each area. Initially, our schools had started out and they just plastered the whole school-wide matrix. So one big document that had every single location on it, and that whole document was created and posted throughout the school. But then we learned it would really be better if in the hallway, you only posted the norms and the behavior skills just for the hallway, and then just for the bathroom, and then a separate poster just for the cafeteria. So dividing it up helped the focus for just that one area for where students currently were. And it also allowed them to make them the font, the print size larger so that it actually was legible. Remember that we want teachers to use it as a teaching tool and as a teaching prompt. And if it's just a tiny printed thing on an 8x10 piece of paper, then that's not happening. Nobody's going to be able to read it unless they're right there on top of it. So make sure that you, when we say go big, we're saying make sure that they are big enough that you can actually read them at a distance. And remember, this is going to be really a visual prompt for the adults in the building when you're walking, you're escorting your class down the hallway and somebody isn't engaging in the correct behavior skill, to be able to point and touch that poster on the wall and say, okay, guys, remember, this is what respect looks like when we're walking down the hall. Our hands are behind our back. We're walking on the blue line, or we've got a finger over our lips, or we've caught a bubble, or whatever that behavior skill is that we're wanting the kids to exhibit. So make sure that they really are visible and can be used as a teaching tool like that. And get creative, have fun with it. Maybe have and I love that you're taking this year to build that plane. That is just such a great way to engage in this work and to have things all, ready. And as much as you try to plan ahead, there's still going to be things that come up, but just being able to engage in this work and get everything ready and really have the time and opportunity to get input and engage with your stakeholders, of your teachers and your students and your parents, but get creative in engaging them. Have maybe you have a student contest to create posters or logos. Maybe you're going to maybe you're going to do some school merch and, print the norms on pencils or t-shirts or folders or buttons or stickers or anything that you can think of. You might want to consider, I know sometimes people will use for our non-readers or students with disabilities or ESOL students, they will use picture icons to illustrate what the behavior skill is. Consider using pictures of your students and put those on the posters. Kids love seeing their faces, but I would caution you, if you're going to go through the effort of doing that, make sure that you include pictures of a lot of the younger students in your grade band so that it will last for more than 1 year. If you really focused all on 5th grade students in the very next year, those posters are kind of obsolete and those kids are gone. So think about getting a good mix of age groups whenever you're doing that. If students wear a lanyard, one more thing, if students wear a lanyard, consider printing a small copy of what those norms are and stick it down inside that lanyard. And that's another way to prompt and remind and to help them learn what those school norms are. And then the last thing that I want to leave you with today, because I know we're getting very close to the end of our time together and want to be able to answer any questions you might have, is don't force fit. Don't try to make something fit where it really doesn't. You'll be able to find connections in a lot of places, but if it doesn't fit, it just doesn't fit. So don't try to make it. So use your data to guide the selection. And I did notice that Crystal did share with me the slide deck for your initial day 1 of training, and wow, what a packed day that was, and a lot of great things that were covered. And I love that they said they included in there, use your data to determine which locations you need to develop those norms and behavior skills for, and which ones you're going to teach. If a norm doesn't really fit, if there really aren't any behavior skills that go with a particular norm in a particular location, leave it out. Make that put a pretty logo or picture or something decorative in there, or just, gray it out. Don't try to force and put something there just because you think there has to be something in every single box on the matrix. That was one of the things that that we learned as we were going through this. So we would look at some of them and just go, well, that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense right there. But once we communicated to our schools to say, it's okay if there's a blank box there. You don't have to fill in every single one. The other thing is, and I know that you guys are still in the process of developing your norms and writing that matrix. Don't fall into the acronym trap of trying to force fit some norms to fit either your, well, we're the Tigers and having to have a word with every letter of Tigers. Or I've seen we had one of our schools was a 7 Habits school, and they wanted to incorporate that. And while there were connections, it just wasn't a nice fit, especially when thinking about keeping it simple, because you want even your 5-year-olds to be able to tell you what the school norms are and to be able to internalize those and know what those are and being able to share them. So don't force fit anything into feeling like you have to use, if you're Risley Middle School, that you have to use RMS or that you have to use your school mascot. Do keep it very, very simple. Consider alignment with your feeder schools. If you have maybe 2 or 3 elementary schools that feed into the same middle school, consider having those teams talk and figure out if they can reach some consensus on alignment on what the school norms might look like as kids feed into that larger middle or larger high school. Thinking about your bus matrix. One of the pitfalls, one of the things that we learned very quickly was we had 10 elementary schools, and all but one had issues with bus referrals. And each school initially was creating their own bus matrix. But we quickly realized that was problematic for our drivers who were driving multiple routes or had multiple schools on the bus at the same time, or even at different times. If they ran an elementary route and then ran a middle school route during the day, it was very difficult for them to reinforce those behavior skills that the school had been teaching. And so you might want to consider having a district-wide bus matrix that's consistent across the district for every single school, no matter who's getting on the bus and going where. That will certainly help with training your bus drivers and being consistent with those expectations there. Also, you want to make sure that you have a process, a system in place to review and revise your matrix annually. As students change, so will your data. And, so will the different focuses on locations that come up in your data and what you might need to address. And maybe you realize that, oh, this wasn't quite as effective as we wanted, or we've been doing this for a while and this really isn't an issue anymore, so we really just need to maintain. But having that process and a plan in place for sustainability and how you're going to continue along with that, and particularly thinking about in sustainability with your matrix and how you're going to teach these expectations to new students as they may come throughout the school year, or even new teachers who might join your staff throughout the school year. What is going to be the plan to bring those students on board? That's pretty much all that I have for you that I can think of right now. This has been recorded, so you can, of course, share this out. And if you guys, anybody wants to come off mute or ask any questions in the chat, I'll be happy to answer those.
Yes. We're going to stop recording so that if anyone has any questions, they can ask, and it'll be separate.